So this is part two of the multiple sites on .Mac for iWeb. So get into it, or look for part one if you haven't heard it. Um, Test sites 2. Okay, so open that up, pull back, and in that test sites 2, I've got a domain file which is an 06 one, right? So I'm going to quit this. I'm going to open up the 06. That's test site 2 there that I've got open. That's the one there. Test sites 2, and I could change that name to test sites 2. And I've got another a tutorial that tells you how to open both and to have them. But the best way to run 06 or 08 or a number of sites is, I think, to have separate domain files, because then if one blows up you don't lose everything. You know what I mean? And it makes it easier to back up, because quite often you only make variations on one site, one or two sites, and you don't need to constantly back up, this gigantic bloody file that you've got everything in, or have a complex process for doing it. Just make a folder that has all the materials that you use, all the assets as they call them, in your for the particular site, and whack the domain file into that and start the domain file from there by simply dragging it onto the version of iWeb that you want to open it with. The best idea to stop 08 opening, I found, a site for instance that's an 06 file, is to simply zip them. So in other words, when I've finished with it, and it's not a bad practice anyway, I say I've finished with doing this, I just simply take the file, right click on it, right click on it, go down to create archive of domain 08, and I zip it. Now when you've zipped it like that, it takes a couple of seconds or whatever, 10 seconds or whatever to zip it. It doesn't get opened. Okay, so it's completely safe. You're not going to end up opening that file only to find out that you've opened the wrong one and things have been stuffed up and you've converted them or whatever it is. There's no need to do that, right? So now the more important thing to look at, I think, is to understand the structure, and I've got another video on this as well, the structure of where things are in your folder on .Mac itself, and this is important, right? So let's go backwards a bit. This is my .Mac account for this one. I've got a few .Mac accounts now, so we'll look at this in more detail, right? Click on the web one, and you'll start to see that there's because I use both 08 and 06, right, in iWeb, I've got an RSS file that's outside of the site, which is the 06 version does that. That creates RSS files, which is the really simple server files for each site that you make. See all the sites I've got there? These are all separate sites. Okay, every one of them's a separate site. There's a test site 1, test site 2. These are all the sites that, and I can tell straight away, these are all the sites that are done in 06, because 06 is the only one that puts the sites inside the separate iWeb folder, sorry, the RSS folder, and the iWeb folder within the RSS folder. Okay, and I'll explain that in a minute. In this one, you've got sites, and this is the 08 folder. This is where you'll find all the 08 stuff. And you'll find another one I've made in 08, which is Dave's test site. And for 08, the RSS files, these ones are actually embedded within this folder for running anything that needs an RSS file. So if I want to look at the structure of that, once again, I'll see this here. If I had two 08 files, two 08 iWeb 08 sites, there would be two folders, one called Dave Test Site, the next one would be Dave Test Site 2, Dave Test Site 3, whatever you want. Do you see what I mean? So they all remain separate within the .Mac as long as they've got different names. That's the only important thing. Okay, now and you'd also find in here the iWeb 06 files, but they're all in the iWeb folder. So the iWeb 08 doesn't go any deeper than that. That's as far as it goes. It doesn't go into any of these files. However, iWeb 06 does. It puts everything in this iWeb file here. Do you see that? So there's my iWeb files 06. These are all the other sites that I run as well. Okay, doke. So it's pretty straightforward, I think, anyway. Now, I'm not sure how clear that is to you in terms of working out the nature of these things, but go through it again if you're not sure. Now, if it doesn't seem to make much sense to you and you're having trouble with it, please email me on my site at australianmac.com, and I will revise this and or answer your questions. Okay, I'm only too happy to make changes to it. Okay.